I'm curious, what are the factors that you see on a UX point of view that impact whether a product generates revenue? Like, are there usability issues that you think that you see companies or usability mistakes that companies make that actually like reduce their odds of success on products?
I think it has a significant impact on success. Of course, it's very hard to separate in many cases from other factors. I think AI can increase the coverage of UX on different areas, can help with standardizations of good practices. And currently what we see that AI can support individual methodologies. It means that like when you do research, it won't do the research without you, but it can accelerate and increase quality. And the same for wireframing, branding, and so on.
Andreas, welcome to Product Growth Stories. So happy to have you here and dive into your business, Ergomania. And I'm curious, when did you start Ergomania?
Hi, I'm happy to be here also. And I started Ergomania 13 years ago in 2012.
And and right now I know you're doing like user interface design, user experience, and like product design for companies. Is that what have you been doing that the whole time, or have you pivoted throughout the journey?
Yeah, basically like I started my UX career like 23 years ago. So in 2002, I think in Hungary where I started, I was between the first 5-10 people dealing with UX. That time we called it usability rather, or web ergonomics. So even the term wasn't used much. And I was working as a freelancer for a while, and I started the company where I saw that it's too much work for me alone.
Great. And I mean, one of the things that I love to ask people about is the difference between, when you first started, how you got your first clients is usually very different from how the company is growing now. So I'd love to hear about like, what did you need to do to get your first clients at Ergomania?
As a first client in Ergomania, actually, it was a transition because I started to work with them as a freelancer. And it was a relatively big project that I had to realize that I cannot handle it alone. So I founded the company and I hired my first colleague in this process. And it was a pretty interesting project because it was something like eBay, but was focusing on that, not selling products, but exchanging products and services. So it was like a swap site, and the complexity was quite big, and you cannot handle all the detail and so on. So that was my first client, and actually they were dealing with gaming as well. And when they first called me, they didn't look serious at all. So I was even hesitating to go for the first meeting because they were somewhat too relaxed and too easygoing. So I thought that it cannot be like a decent client. But actually, in the first year, they were producing, I think, more than 50% of their revenue.
Nice. So the first one was, just transitioning, like taking a client with you from freelancing into your agency as you're growing it.
Yes.
But what are you doing now to get new and Ergomania to find new companies to serve?
We do a lot of things. So I would say that we use like 8-10 channels to get new clients, and it's very hard to evaluate which one is the most effective in that sense. But you see the numbers that which one brings in the lead at the end, but they are interacting. So for example, that we had our biggest client through LinkedIn ever, a German bank, what we got some years ago. And we go a lot to conferences, and conferences don't convert directly very well nowadays. After COVID, it changed. So it's not very easy that you go to conference, you talk with people who need your services, then you have some follow-up meetings, then you sign the deal. It happens, but this is not like, at least in our industry, like kind of money-making engine. But when you make the photos on the conference, you post, you add it to LinkedIn, it interacts with that channel. So it accelerates that channel. But in general, we use like for getting new clients, conferences, recommendations for existing clients, or sometimes it's a good way to get a new client that you have somebody who is really keen about your services and switches a position. So you can get a new client through an old customer, personal customer, getting leads through website. Other digital channels like Facebook, Instagram doesn't convert too much in our case. Sometimes we get very tiny projects from these channels, but not much. Also like your personal network helps a lot.
Yeah.
So I got recently like relatively big client to a house party.
Yeah.
So there was a friend who was coming all
So
the time to the party and converted.
if there's any lesson here, I think it's that you need more house parties. That's
Yes,
really
that's definitely a
this is the
lesson. That,
channel is
that this,
under.
that's definitely
Yeah.
house parties. It's biggest.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I know as marketers, people think of the channels like individual little separate islands, but
No.
everyone is apparently everywhere. Like everyone has a LinkedIn, everyone has to talk to grandma on Facebook or whatever. And you have to somehow have this presence wherever you happen to catch people. So you're
Yes. Yes.
finding that
Obviously.
conferences are adding it sounds to me like they're adding a legitimacy. Like, okay, we're a real player. We
Yes.
are showing up at these places.
Yeah, so I think it adds to legitimacy, and also that, let's say you're going to a conference to Japan and you post about that, and people, they think that you are somebody. So that
Yeah.
when they see that, okay, this guy is in Tokyo on a financial conference, that's a thing. So I think it really improves your credibility and your insights also, because when you come back and when you talk with potential leads, you can just throw in that, by the way, in Japan, this and these things are happening. These are the trends. And they say, oh, wow, how do you know that? They really interact all the channels.
Yeah. And so now you've grown it to, I think you have 50 plus designers at this point. Is that right?
Almost. We didn't reach that number, but we're quite close to that.
Almost there. Yeah. And I'm curious, especially right now with AI changing everything, are you finding that the way you go about user interface design has changed with AI tools, or it's still a distraction?
It's a tricky question because me personally, I'm quite, how to say, fanatic about AI. So I see huge potential in that. In our industry, it's both potential and a threat. If I look at only UX, I think it's a huge opportunity to improve UX for multiple reasons, because you can bring UX to fields and areas where earlier there was no budget and no possibility to utilize UX or UX research, for example. So let's say that we work quite much with banks, and they are focusing on the mobile banking interface, on the trading interface, etc. But they don't focus, let's say, on a dubious risk assessment interface, what's used by 15 people. But with AI, you can run some basic evaluations on these interfaces. You can even run some research and so on. So you might say that, okay, the AI is not as perfect as human researchers, but still can do something, what can improve those people's lives who are working with that software. So I think AI can increase the coverage of UX on different areas, can help with standardizations of good practices. And currently what we see that AI can support individual methodologies. It means that like when you do research, it won't do the research without you, but it can accelerate and increase quality. And the same for wireframing, branding, and so on. Currently, this is happening. I think in, let's say, in 5-10 years, we will see some methodologies 100% robotized or automatized. So you can run a user interview with AI without any human intervention. So I can imagine that an AI will call you, runs an interview with you based on earlier samples, and can summarize, evaluate, and make a final presentations for the designers or for the managers. I think currently it's possible, but probably the quality is not the best. But in 5 years, I can imagine that it will reach the quality of average researchers.
Yeah, I could see this too. In 5 years, it'll do everything. That's what everyone
Yeah,
thinks.
yeah,
It's gonna
yeah.
it'll do all the job. Yeah. And when you look, I mean, when you see so many UX projects and you get to see them in different companies, and I think that's a way different point of view than a lot of people have if they're working on one major product or they work in one SaaS company, and they really inherited something. I'm curious, what are the factors that you see on a UX point of view that impact whether a product generates revenue? Like, are there usability issues that you think you see company or usability mistakes that companies make that actually like reduce their odds of success on products?
I think it has a significant impact on success. Of course, it's very hard to separate in many cases from other factors. So for example, if your product has stupid features or it's in the wrong place or your pricing is wrong or your, I don't know, support team is arrogant and I can list a lot of factors what can ruin your business. Of course, UX itself, it won't save you, might decrease the damage still, but so that everything should be on place, at least on the minimum level. And it really depends what is your goal. So UX can help you to improve your revenue in cases when it's really focusing on revenue generation. So for example, when you are selling a loan or when you are selling products and so on and so on. When you are using stuff daily, it rather improves the loyalty of the customers. So you won't lose customers whom you already have. But like McKinsey was doing earlier, like research is comparing companies who are utilizing, I don't know, design-centric approach and who are not. And there is like a significant difference between their stock market performance in the long run. And I still believe in that those companies who are user-centric, they are doing well or much better than the same style of companies. And in some industries, for example, banking, what we're following quite much, companies who are not user-centric, I think will definitely disappear. So it's not just about that you have a disadvantage, but at one point those companies will sink.
Yeah. At some point, people won't accept those products, basically. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. It's so weird because, you know, it sounds like if you just say user-centric, like, of course, like, why wouldn't you? You know, it sounds like a no-brainer that you would do that.
Yeah.
But it's so, on the other hand, it's so often, especially in larger companies, they think, you know, we need to do X because we want this revenue stream. And they just kind of dump it out there, you know, and it doesn't have those elements. Yeah. Have you ever been involved in rescuing projects like that?
You mean that like when it was really performing badly and UX saved the process?
Yeah, when you had something that like wasn't user-centric when it was, you know, first conceived and you had to come in, and have you ever been in that kind of situation?
It's a bit hard because like usually I think when companies, they utilize UX and user-centric approach, at least they have already something. So usually my experience that people, they utilize UX and that knowledge when they are doing okay, but they want more. So companies who are doing really badly, they don't see this as an option. So this is not very common that like there was a company otherwise doing well, but UX was catastrophic and they changed it and afterwards business got better. Usually what we see in these cases that companies are approaching us sometimes with catastrophic UX. We tell them what to do. They say that, oh, thank you, that's amazing. We have to think through. Then they disappear.
Then they don't do it.
I mean, they disappear from our radar. And also we know some potential clients that there was a bank in Romania and they approached us. And we told them, hey guys, there is a lot to do. And let's start today. We can start with small projects. It won't cost too much. So you can experiment, you can learn. They said, oh yeah, that's very interesting. We have to discuss with the management. And they closed that bank in 1 year.
Yeah.
Because they were not bringing the numbers anyways. So so sometimes my experience that when you are on level 4, you cannot jump to level 8. You can go to the next level, but if the gap is too big, you cannot bridge it very easily. And
that
this
makes
is what
sense,
I see with companies with very bad UX, that kind of helpless. But of course, there are twists, so we save some companies well, but this is not the common scenario. That
makes sense. So I'm curious, you know, what are you, like in 2025, what are you the most excited about for UX, for the future of UX?
Future of UX, I think I'm excited about 2 trends. One of them, I'm still excited about AI because it can democratize the whole UX and also it enables us to do things what we always wanted to do but couldn't, especially like personalization, so that it can give you good tailored services what really matches your personality. And also I really believe in conversational interfaces, what are in several cases much more natural than visual interfaces, so that you just imagine you go into a shop, it's much easier to ask the clerk that where are the black trousers than to find them on your own. What you can do with good structure of the shop very easily, but so much easier just to ask. So it's the same for digital interfaces. I think there is still a lot room for improvement, a lot of opportunities. So I'm still excited about this, and I really don't think that it's a hype. It's a long way, so that it's not that what they said, I think 3 years ago, that ChatGPT will transform our life by now, and we should run this interview on Mars or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's not that quick, but I think it's a kind of clear route. The other thing, what I'm excited about, that they're not just focusing on products regarding UX, but on company culture and processes. So that like improving the UX in the company culture, governance, management support, assets, and so on. So to make the whole ecosystem, I'm not just fixing on that, hey, we have a mobile app, let's fix the usability issues in the app. So to go to a more strategical level, and I see that it's happening with many companies. Still not enough, but at least it's visible that people are working on that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, András. It's been a great conversation. Love having you on the show.
Yes, it was very good to talk with you as well, and happy to be here again. Thank you.